Hey everybody, welcome to Real Talk, where we talk all things God and culture. Pastor Kevin here, and I'm sitting with Pastor Jeremy once more. So excited to dive in today because this is a special one.
Oh yeah, people,
we are
get ready.
We're gonna make quite a few people mad with this one, I think.
Yeah.
So let's jump into it, specifically Christians, because there's a notable show recently concluded called Game of Thrones.
Very popular.
Unless you live under a rock, you at least know that phrase. People talk about it. Apparently, it's a great show. Apparently, it's a lot of things. But you know what the show has become infamous for is really the explicit sexual content, the sex scenes, the rape scenes and nudity and everything like that.
Yeah.
Which is just ridiculous. It's absolutely crazy. So our question really from all of that, with this in mind, comes with the two thoughts. There's pornography, and then there's film nudity, or is there a difference between the two? As Christians, we talk about how we're against pornography, but what about nudity in film? How much should we accept? Is there an acceptable amount? And this branches out past Game of Thrones. I mean, think of movies like Deadpool. Think of other shows like Shameless and whatever else is queued up in Netflix. You have it's everywhere.
Yeah.
So Pastor Jay, what do you think of this? Where are you going to take us to?
A few opening thoughts. First of all, sexuality and film has gotten crazy. It's made it so just
casual.
Purely casual and physical, and that's it, which is a shame, and our kids are growing up in a whole different world than the Leave It to Beaver world that I grew up in, that's for sure. But let me go back to Game of Thrones a little bit, because I've never seen it, so I've read a lot about it. I've seen some advertisements for it and all that kind of stuff, and I'm very aware of what it is, and frankly, this would be the kind of show that I would be into, because I like political stuff. I like good story. I like war type of things. I like nation rising against nation. That's the kind of stuff I'm into, But I have chosen not to watch this show because of the stuff that I read about, the stuff that you talked about, the clear graphic sexuality in it. It's just, for me as a believer and a follower of Christ who is trying to walk with God, it just made it unacceptable in my life. And the reason that I've had to draw this line is because of what we say around Metro all the time, and I believe it to the core of who I am. Yeah. Nothing takes you farther, faster from the heart of God than sexual immorality. Nothing. Yeah. We're well aware of this. As men, the temptation of sexuality is virtually constant.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. And it is something that has to be guarded. And so when you look at this Game of Thrones, everybody's talking about it, or Deadpool, or any of these movies. People are talking about it, they're into it, and it seems like nobody even cares. Yeah. It seems like, it's okay, it's perfectly fine. I don't know. I don't think it is. So again, this whole idea of Real Talk is for people who say they believe. This is for people who say they want to follow Christ and have a biblical worldview of life. And so don't go emailing us your hate letters over this, because if you're not following Christ, if you're following Christ, we'll
this is for you. This is for you.
But if not, it's not for you. But there is a guy that both you and I have been greatly influenced by. His name is John Piper.
He's great.
He has a ministry called Desiring God, and it's all over the internet. And John Piper writes a little article, and I think there's like 10, 12 points in it that he says, should a Christian watch Game of Thrones? And then he gives us 10, 12 reasons why. He says no way. And so we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to divide this into 2 segments, and we are literally going to go through that article. Yeah. Because I think it is so good. Yeah. And we're just going to kind of read his point and then kind of talk about it a little bit. So let's do it. Let's get into this.
Yeah. All right, Pastor Jay. So the first one is simply this. It's a simple question. Am I re-crucifying Christ? Yeah. And I think the idea behind this is that when Christ died on the cross for us, he died to crush our sin. So us watching things like this with this sort of content, are we inviting it back into our lives?
Yeah. What a great thought, right? That Christ, when he died for us, it was to eliminate the sin from our life, to put an end to it. He says, the one who the Son sets free is free indeed, truly free, that we're not supposed to hold on to certain things. So listen to what Titus says in the scriptures. Now, the book of Titus, Titus chapter 2, verse 14, it says about Christ, it says, he who gave himself up for us to redeem us from all of the lawlessness and to purify for himself a people for his own possession who are zealous for good works. That's a very fancy way of saying Christ died for us for a purpose, to redeem us and to make us pure, to get rid of the things in our life that are junk, that aren't good for us. And so if we purpose in our heart to keep dancing with the stuff that can so easily entangle us, sexuality, right? That can easily tempt us. He's saying it's dangerous. Yeah. And I agree. Great first point.
Yeah. Number 2, one of my favorite points. I think it's brilliant. Simple question. Does it express or advance my holiness? Does watching this advance my relationship with God? I think it's a great question in every area of life, but talk about that for a moment.
Yeah. So 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 15, I think it is, it says, you, me, us, it says, be holy because God is holy.
Yeah.
And I just cannot imagine somebody thinking that watching pornography brings you to holiness. It doesn't. Actually, I met a Christian one time who actually tried to defend that idea. He said it's God's most natural state and it's the beauty of God and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, no, that is the cheapening of all that God made holy, right? Yeah. There's a verse in the book of Hebrews, chapter 13. It says, every one of you should keep the marriage bed holy. What is reserved for marriage? Sexuality. Yeah. It's supposed to be between you and your wife. There's an old saying, holiness is becoming of a Christian. It's what we're supposed to become. Yeah. And I don't think that this does it for us.
No, not at all. Not at all. I love the third point as well. Piper kind of muses off of some of Jesus' hyperbole here, but it still hits the heart just the same. Yeah. Simple question once more. When will I tear out my eye, if not now?
Yeah. And this, of course, comes from Jesus' parable or teaching on the idea of if something causes you to sin by looking at something, he says, gouge out your eye.
Yeah, cut off your hand, now, gouge it out.
Do you think that Jesus really wants you to gouge out your eye? I don't know. I don't think so. I think he's hoping that we can fix the problem before then. Yeah. I think the point is that you need to figure out a radical transformation in your life, that if something keeps drawing you downward, you better figure out how to not do that anymore, right? And he uses the expression, gouge it out of your life. And so people, like with this idea of even Game of Thrones or any of this stuff, you know what? Nobody's forcing you to buy a ticket to that movie. Nobody's forcing you to have Netflix in your home. Yeah, that's Nobody, right. You know? Yeah. You have to decide how important your relationship to Christ is. Yeah. You have to decide how much you love him, because if God is important to you, if holiness is important to you, then some things do not belong in our life. And Jesus says you better take radical action to get it out. Yeah.
Okay, so fourth point. Yeah. Is it not satisfying to think on what is honorable?
Yeah,
talk around this for a second.
Such an incredible thought that John Piper puts forward here. Is it not satisfying to a Christian to think about what is good and honorable and holy? Of course, he takes this from Philippians chapter 4, where he says, for the believer, that's who we're talking to, right? He says, on these things think. Think about these things, whatever is good, true, noble, honorable, godly, holy. He lists all of these things off. And he says, if it's like this, if it describes this, think on these things, because that's what's going to take you to God. And Piper asks this question. He says, if you're really a believer, do you need that when you have something so good over here? Yeah. Is it not satisfying to think about the goodness of God? Why do you need Game of Thrones? Why do you need Deadpool or whatever it is, you know?
All right, so I really like this next one as well. Simple question. Am I longing to see God? In my head, I read this and I think, is God everything in my life? Because he's everything or he's nothing. Am I longing to see God?
Yeah, I can tell you that when people are looking at a Game of Thrones sex scene, they are not longing to see God.
Yeah.
They're not.
Number 6 is an interesting question, because I think within film, within shows, movies, whatever, we view characters and we don't view them as people.
Yeah.
We lose the idea that that's a soul loved by God. So this question is, do I care about the souls of the nude, the souls of the people involved in the scene? Do I care about their souls?
Yeah.
Can you talk around that for a moment?
Wow. Such a huge...
That's profound.
Yeah.
You know?
Man, I find it to be difficult. If I'm watching a lady undress, I'm probably not thinking too much, hey, I'd like to share the gospel with you. Most of the people are going, I'd like to share other things with you, right?
Yeah.
And that's the point, is that it doesn't bring us to the heart of who God is. These are people. These are real people who need God, who need to find Christ. And but as Christians, we've got to love the person inside there.
You have to remember the person.
Yeah.
All right, well, we are going to wrap it up right there. We will come back next time for part 2 with this idea of Game of Thrones and their Christian response to it. But hey, this has been Real Talk, where we talk all things God and culture. We will see you next week.